Now, before we start this video, understand, this is my dog, Bella. And this is Pinky. And they are both female.
Coretta Scott King, in a speech after her husband, Martin Luther King's death, said, quote, "The bullet that pierced the heart of Martin Luther King Jr. could not silence the truth of his message. His dream lives on, and we carry it forward with love and courage." This underscores how MLK's call for equality and justice persisted, inspiring continued action against hate. We hope Charlie's suffering family will take comfort.
Now, this is the Queen, Coretta Scott King. And anybody who knows me knows how I feel about this queen. And to watch as people lie on the goddess and reference quotes that she never made is a bridge too far. See, Coretta Scott King would have never referred to Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in that term. She would have called him Martin, for one. Coretta Scott King didn't make that quote in the first speech she gave after burying her husband on August the 27th, 1968 in Central Park, where she filled in for her husband because he was supposed to give a speech on Vietnam. And that is when she gave his 10 Commandments on the Vietnam War after she buried her husband. On June the 19th of 1968 in Resurrection City in Washington, D.C. at the Solidarity Day event. Didn't say it then either. She did not say it on July the 1st, 1968 at Harvard University when she gave the "We May Yet My Life" with Martin Luther King Jr. And she didn't say it in any of the interviews she gave. Coretta Scott King would have never talked about a bullet that didn't exist. The bullet that struck the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did not pierce his heart. It entered his body at his right cheek, just above his mouth, shattered his jaw, then traveled to his neck where it severed major arteries and also shattered his spinal column before coming to rest in his back just above his shoulder blade. The Neanderthalic yogurt yeti wishes to lie on Coretta Scott King because they are so desperate to tie the death of Charlie Kirk to the memory of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this is not. Charlie Kirk is just your average, mediocre, run-of-the-mill white man. And no matter how many times translucent troglodyte try to lie and try to attribute those lies to quotes by the Queen, Coretta Scott Lee, that this toilet paper hued individual was not even good enough to wipe the ass of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Y'all see what happened to Jimmy Kimmel? It's interesting, though, how freedom of speech only becomes a national crisis when white people start losing their jobs behind what they say. Not when it was black voices, not when it was teachers, not when it was protesters. But now it's news. Because that First Amendment is finally being felt the way that it's always worked. For some, not for all. The First Amendment was added to the Constitution in 1791, right? It was supposed to guarantee free speech, protest, and petition. But from the very beginning, it came with limits, just unspoken ones. Black voices weren't protected. Indigenous voices weren't heard. Women's voices weren't even counted. Abolitionists had their printing presses burnt down. Newspapers that spoke out were violently silenced. The Sedition Act of 1798 made it literally illegal to criticize the government. So while yes, the First Amendment existed, it was never truly available to everyone. So fast forward to this year, 2025, right? People are being investigated, fired, doxxed. Not just for what they've done, but for what they said. Airline workers, teachers, students, artists, professors, nurses. Some are being punished for speaking up about Gaza. Some for criticizing CK. Some for just reposting something that made the wrong people uncomfortable. Now the conversation about the First Amendment is back in the spotlight. Not because this kind of suppression is new, but because it's hitting people that it doesn't usually touch. And that discomfort, that's what a lot of us have been trying to explain for generations. But let's be honest, because we know the First Amendment only protects you from government censorship, not from people disagreeing with you. But when public institutions, universities, or elected officials start silencing people over viewpoints that they don't like, that crosses the line. Because when speech becomes a litmus test for opportunity, employment, or safety, it's not really freedom, is it? It's performance. And it only protects the people in power. So what we're seeing right now isn't a breakdown of the First Amendment. It's an unveiling. People who always assumed that it would protect them are now realizing that it was never unconditional. And folks who've always walked on eggshells, we're just watching the rest of the country finally catch up. Free speech was never about who's right. It's about who's allowed. And when that starts shifting, everybody should be paying attention.